All right, good afternoon, everyone. Once again, welcome to Los Angeles in this high training workshop. I'm gonna do dissertation on poor disaster resilience and emergency management, ethical and economic costs of forgetting our past. So, hope everyone ate well. So, people say that army marches on its stomach. So I hope you are ready to bear with me for another at least 25-30 minutes. I'm going to start off with the table of contents. So I have abstract and table of contents, background, a little bit about me and a little bit about what is disaster management and how it has been handled so far. And then my personal experiences responding to disasters in Nepal, especially in one of the major rivers, which is called Kosi, and the other river was Reburied. And I also responded to other occasional emergencies while I was in the military. And I also served as United Nations peacekeepers. I was one of the peacekeepers, so I also had some very close experiences in regards to humanitarian assistance. And there are some research questions. And of course, in methodology, objective, significance of the studies, scope, methods, how I sample, how I would be sampling the techniques, sampling techniques, research settings, data resources, data collection instruments, qualitative data collection, analysis of selected incidents, and ethical perspectives on not learning the lesson. On chapter 3, I will be discussing about results of the analysis of Nepali cases, and then chapter 4, result of the analysis of UN peacekeeping operation cases, and then there will be discussion. And on chapter 6, there will be conclusion and recommendation. So the abstracts goes like this: research examines several experiences I've had while serving as a colonel in the Nepalese army in disaster response, including the Kosi River inundation, the Reburied River inundation, the earthquake in eastern Nepal, as well as responses to occasional emergencies such as fire, bus crashes, and so on in Nepal. I'll also make a comparison to some experiences responding to humanitarian disasters as a UN peacekeeper in Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Among the research questions asked are: how does poor emergency management affect people, and how are the costs reported and used in policy making to develop disaster resilience? How does poor disaster management affect people, and how are the costs reported and used in policy making to develop disaster resilience? What lessons are persistently identified, and how often do these same mistakes occur? Recur. What are the features of relations which actually result in action being made to lower the risk of damage caused by a future disaster? How do different groups classify a relation as important enough to assign time or monetary resources to make remedies. Some of the ethical issues associated with this type of research are also asked, such as whether the privacy of persons who fail to learn the lessons of past disasters and whose actions lead to loss of life in future disaster should be reported. Through the analysis of the reports, I ask, why do authorities and agencies have difficulty devising and implementing corrective actions once lessons are identified? There are economic, ethical, and human costs of forgetting our past. It is difficult but important to define human happiness and human security related to disaster resilience. By explicitly identifying persistent challenges, responders may be better attuned to these challenges and more able to address them in their planning and training processes. Likewise, my better understanding why these challenges remain unresolved, responders and policymakers may be able to adapt their lessons learned process to better support behavioral change and improvement. There are a number of recommendations for improving these processes. So with the abstract, we kind of now know that there are all the time human lives and properties being lost, despite all the time coming with seemingly very right kind of recommendations and ideas. So so in this, when I was framing these chapters, what we understand or don't understand by resilience is, I always make an example of anything like paper or something like that. We break the shape of this paper and destroy it. So the resilience is basically, in the sphere of disaster is how long it takes for this paper to come back to its original shape. So, and that time is very crucial. And even before I crush this paper, what happens is the degree of seriousness, that we think about and give time to save life is very important. That is in the preparation phase. And it looks like everyone missing that point. Right there in the planning phase, or right there when we were kind of accepting that disaster can happen to us. We fell right there. So let's jump to chapter 1. And the context is disaster, natural or man-made, is not a new term in human discourse when responding to an emergency. The only problem with this word is humans tend to think that if disaster strikes, that themselves will be safe or hit a little later than others. Every time the community or a nation is overwhelmed by the pinch of disaster, we respond to it and identify the same lessons again and again after every incident. There should be better disaster resilience, meaning that we make preparations for future disaster based on those lessons we learned from the past ones. However, often lives and property are lost. So where the problem area lies, is it in our brain? So that's a good ethical questions to ask. Because, inherently, we know that there will be communication breakdown, there will be too much of resources, and there will be choke point, and release of that essential commodities or logistics to the victims is always slow due to one factor or the other. So these are the lessons already been identified. Then why, but still we fail to improve it, and lives are lost in the process. In fact, responders can readily predict the problem that will arise in a major incident, and too often their predictions are borne out in practice. Even a casual observer can spot problems that recur. Communication systems fail, command and control systems are fractured, resources are slow to be deployed. Human security is freedom from fear, need, and want, and free from these hazardous impact. When is it helpful to blame someone or some organization that is negligent in their professional responsibility? We also may prefer to blame others for mistakes or claim that it is the fault of nature or God and not a systematic failure. But so many disasters appear to repeat themselves, so it is important to develop a better system to analyze how we can improve the system. So this is the background, and this is the picture I took in one of the hilltops in Nepal. And this used to be my daily life. To give you a little bit about my background, commissioned into the Nepalese Army in 1990, I had the honor of having a distinguished military career that spanned 25 years, that included intimate involvement in fighting 10 years of Maoist insurgency. This was a human-made disaster that cost at least 17,000 lives. Unofficially, but officially it was 10,000, and displaced over 1 million people. But this thesis will include cases in Nepal from so-called natural disasters. Wars are among the worst disasters that occur, and people fail to learn their lessons that war creates suffering. Poor planning and failing to learn from our lessons from disasters means that the so-called natural disasters are also often human-made disasters. I was posted to the Royal Artillery Battalion when I served as a combat engineer for many years. Later, I served as a battalion commander for an infantry unit. I also had 3 tours of duty in the conflict-ridden areas of Middle East, mainly Israel and Lebanon, and Africa as a peacekeeper under the United Nations. In Democratic Republic of Congo, I was commanding a group of 91 military observers from 31 different countries. It was a very interesting deputation. This required skills in human resources management to work with persons from extremely different or diverse countries who had all been directed to render humanitarian assistance to the needy people of this region. I then retired as a colonel from Nepal Army in a twist of my journey, and I'm now living in the United States, pursuing human excellence and unearthing ethics. Experiences responding to disasters in Nepal. In this section, I will describe several actual cases that I experienced, and through these cases, explore the issues that were raised and the solutions that were applied. There will be fuller analysis in chapter 3 of the documentation and details. In this figure, you can see country Nepal, which is kind of people say that it is sandwiched between 2 big countries, China and India. Both has billions of people and their population. So going to specifics, Boosie River inundation. That happened in 2nd July 2006. I was a commander of one of the units there. Number of persons affected were 500, and fatalities is 3. Looks like fatalities is only 3, but in this kind of case, if unwarranted death comes across, then even 1 is too much. It's too many. So my involvement as a colonel in the Nepalese Army, I was dispatched as part of the standard operating procedures to respond to humanitarian disaster situation, along with a company of 200 military personnel. My responsibility included coordination with the civilian authority, including this chief district officer. We arrived on the location after the inundation, still in time to see the inundation of the houses because of the breach of the river banks. We could see property damage. The first response was search and rescue of missing persons. That's what it happens when military get in there. The search and rescue takes place and try to normalize the situation. There was no written formal report. The written reports would be developed by my team as notes during interviews with the affected community. What is that? Is like nobody would know whether they lost their family or they're just misplaced or are they hanging just by the tree or on top of the roof of the house. Nobody knows. It's just a scene of absolute chaos. We stayed in the community for 5 days in a camp, and after the search and rescue mission, we would return to our local base and help the community by regular daytime visit to the community. This was the start of the rehabilitation phase, and we provided temporary tents, food, and also materials for repairing the houses, provide medical support for many health jars, and we would also provide financial support for the cremation of the dead bodies that were recovered, because the villagers had lost everyone and everything. The Department of Roads would repair the road later on. When the technicians with the road department would not be able to fix unless some of the basic infrastructure is put in place by the military. The organization chart is in figure 2. Some pictures are in figure 3. After 3 months, my company left the district and the company authorities could take over the long-term construction efforts. So yeah, some kind of inundation looks like this, and then the rollout of the army would be to good in the affected areas, try to find the missing people, dead bodies, or some valuable properties. Yeah, those are the actions we would do during this phase. Yeah, I remember this boat. We used our boat, the boat of the villagers, because sometimes the resources is always less than what is in demand. So improvisation is key to respond to this kind of situations. We should get help of whatever means is available and tools. We should make use of all those tools. People, they lost everything and try to grab everything they can get hold of. Their animals, families, whatever it was available. So later on, when the situation a little bit normalizes, then comes the rehabilitation phase, where when the villages lose everything, they immediately need money or ration or food or rations or whatever is required. Then we give out those essential commodities to the needy people. So basically, this is called relief distribution. Normally, it doesn't happen on the first day, so it happens on the second or third day. And sometimes if things go terribly wrong, then this relief effort starts a week later than when the disaster strikes. So if you can coordinate the relief efforts in less than 3 days, then I would consider that as an ideal situation. I mean, if you can do in the first minute, well then good. If not, for at least 3 days before the third day. So this was a case in another situation in Rasbiraz river inundation. Virtually, all houses are inundated. and virtually all the administration is thrown into chaos. And especially in the developing countries, there will be definitely power failure and communication failure. So, search and rescue and coming to a right kind of information environment is a big challenge. My involvement was as a colonel in the Nepalese Army. I was dispatched there's a standard operating procedure to respond to humanitarian disaster situation. So it was almost it had almost the same nature. We had 10,000 house affected, 17 fatalities. So responses to occasional emergency. We also used to receive requests to assist in local firefighting operations. When the local firefighting brigade requested our assistance. So it is a little different than what you can see here in the United States. Here you have the fire engine coming to your place the moment you place 911 call. But in a country where there's a lot of hills and the firefighting equipment is always scarce and scattered all over the country, it is the well-established organizations like Army or paramilitary force, and at sometimes also police respond to actual firefighting. Usually that would be only for 24 hours, this kind of situation, until the fire was extinguished. And the search and rescue would get finished. Usually, immediately after the fire is extinguished, we secure the community to protect against looting and ransacking. For example, the jewelry shops and businesses will be the target. Another experience was, that was my personal experience was that when a bus went off the road into a deep river, because the mountain rivers are very cold, even in the hottest summer, if you go like 3-4 meters deep, then water becomes so cold that even the best of the best drivers will find a challenging time swimming inside. And we would assist while specialist divers would arrive from Kathmandu, or sometimes they were called from other countries. We would also have to perform search and rescue for dead bodies washed down the river up to 8 days after the accident. The water current was so strong that even the bus had been washed down the river 7 miles from the accident site. So here you can see a picture of this not so very handsome guy in this United Nations while I was serving in the United Nations in Congo.
Very handsome guy.
Thank you very much. So we were closely working with the ICRC, Red Cross, and Samaritan Purse, and those other agencies where we were closely working with all agencies at that time. So experiences responding to humanitarian disaster as a UN peacekeeper. Sudanese people face conditions that were threatening in terms of health, safety, or well-being of a community, as the local militias fought each other while government forces empowered to weaponize its favorite warlords and allies. So, it's always good to know something more. Whenever there's a war in a country, it's not only war of that local community or that country. So the world has become a small or big, I don't know, but all the time there are big powers playing in that country, whether you know it or not, whether you want it or not. It happens. So even in Sudan, that was the situation. The date of my deployment was from 2/20/2017 through 12/20/2008. And I was a military observer as the operational officers in charge of 10 team sites of 6 peacekeepers in each locations. I was the only Nepali working alongside 60 persons from all the countries around the world. A major activity was the rehabilitation of rebel army. Now these are the national army of a new country, of South Sudan. That is the youngest country in the world now. So you can see in this picture, you know, right before the relocation of these then rebel forces, we had to verify, and you can see this truck with their, you know, families, wife, everyone moved from one place to another, other place, and right after, then after this verification, we had to be in the front escorting this, like say, 60, 70 trucks in dirt road. Like you can imagine if 60, 70 trucks move in a dirt road, like it's virtually a war zone. So, and one of the trucks just turned over, rolled over, and these guys became so angry with us that they took us home. Like my team, we were 4 and hostess, we got hostess for 7 hours under gunpoint. They were saying that, hey, you know, in 15 years of war, nothing happened, and you United Nations guys are here, and we have this fake. And then they were kicking us, you know, doing whatever they could. And then I had a local interpreter, and after like half an hour of, you know, silence, they were murmuring, and I asked them, hey, what are they saying? And then my interpreter told me that they are discussing as to how and where to kill us. They were trying to find a ditch. So, you know, like, so luckily we survived. It has got another whole chapter and whole, so, you know, it was a very dangerous situation. But, you know, if you talk about the population there, they really needed help. So similarly, case about Congo. So this is DR Congo, not Dr. Congo, but Democratic Republic of Congo. All right? So I was deployed from April 23rd, 2013 to April 22nd, 2014. There I was a commander of again, military observers in the state of southern Kordofan, an area roughly the size of France. And upsurge in violence had forced thousands of people to flee their homes. A mass displacement was due to not only intercommunal violence, but also rapidly spreading measles outbreak and Ebola epidemic, and that altered the way of life for generations. So, you know, Congo is also a resource, minerals, and there are a lot of natural resources. And believe me, there's a whole mountain of gold, the whole mountain. And then a lot of diamond mines, and also they had coltan, which I was told that they used to put in the chips in our cell phone. So the big actors there, even though there were warlords and there were infighting between political rivals, but the big players were, you know, and I know, and these all big players like big countries, developed countries, and you name it, they were there. So this is beautiful Congo River in the middle of the wild. So I really like this picture, and to the picture of this Congo River. So this picture that you can see here is a registration of combatants and displaced. This picture caught my eye because the person in the front is, don't you think he's a child soldier? Yeah, hardly 30. Well, so, you know, and then we occasionally had to reach them because it's such a big country, you know. I think it's bigger than the whole of the Europe. It's so big. Yeah, and then definitely this is communication and coordination. We had to fly to different location to update ourselves of the situation on the ground. Well, earlier we had discussion. Somebody was saying that they wanted to be a little short. Who was that? Rather than being short, it's always good to be small. That means less resources. So this is one of the parts in Congo, and on your right you can see small kind of hole there. Can you guess what is that?
House? Or?
Yes, that's their house. That's what. So you can just imagine their situation. So that is where our role was so crucial to provide them humanitarian assistance in whatever way possible at that time. Yeah, there's happiness despite all odds. So some of the occasions where we had to respond was to, in a situation like this. It looks like it's a small breeze, but this is only the lifeline between the capital city and other areas. So, and then it looks like it's a small river, small breeze, but once the breezes like this give away, it takes at least 2 to 3 months, and I would say at least $30,000-$40,000. So money was not a big thing, but the time was a big thing, because these villagers will be caught for at least a couple of months, 2 to 3 months. That is what I was most concerned about. So the other thing is, I was telling you that I had to work with,
They are Nepali guys?
I'm coming to that. So I told you that there are 31 different nationals, right? So if you can see why I chose this picture, can anyone tell?
Looks like you all have different uniforms on.
Okay, so one of the guys on my right is, this officer is from India and the other one is from Pakistan. They were arch rivals. They don't want to see their face at all, Just like, for example, let's say now, say Iran officer and American officers working together, right? Something like that. Anything like I had to work with Russian officers and then the part of which was just annexed by Russia just now, 3 years ago. Ukraine. So, those are the situations. Even within Africa, and if Europe, for the same kind of temperature, it was just a fine temperature for an officer from Africa, and it was too hot from an officer from Europe. And they had to live in the same room. And then managing, the management was one of the key challenges for me. So, in my research question, as these examples reveal, we repeatedly confront command and control issues in large incidents. These are but a few examples from dozens of reports that cite the need for sound command structure. Somehow, though, we fail to learn this and other crucial lessons that have been identified in post-action reports for decades. The central concern of this paper is why that is so and how we can improve. Based on the experience I've had, including those mentioned above, the following research questions are the major topics of my research. My report here on an exploratory investigation that targets 12 research questions. How does poor emergency management affect people, and how the costs reported and used in policy making to develop disaster resilience? How does poor disaster management affect people, and how are the costs reported and used? Okay, that is important to repeat it. When nations are persistently identified, how often do the same mistakes recur? What are the features of relations which actually result in action being made to lower the risk of damage caused by a future disaster? How do different groups classify a relation as important enough to assign time or monetary resources to make remedies? Why do authorities and agencies have difficulty devising and implementing corrective actions once the lessons are identified? How can the lessons learned process be improved? Why do people choose to live in disaster-prone regions? And how often is this forced upon them by economic constraints? So, economic factor is one of the key factors why people choose to live in a place knowing that they'll be hit by disaster sooner or later, but they ain't doing that. What is the ethical cost of forgetting our past? Why do we don't learn? It's high time that we learn. It is expected that by explicitly identifying persistent challenges, responders may be better attuned to these challenges and more able to address them in their planning and training process. Okay, I'm going to jump to chapter 2.
Maybe 1 minute.
All right, okay, I think due to our constraints in time, I'm going to have to finish it here, right here. So you have got any questions? Huh? Okay. So yes, significance of the study, and then scope and limitation of the study. Here, my important point is I'll also make an analysis of preparation and response to some major disaster in the world too. So, and that will be also analyzed to streamline the research. Qualitative data collection, analysis of selected incidents. Ethical perspectives of not learning the lesson. So here, politicians and bureaucrats and policymakers always contend that the best plan is in place. Emergency responders intervene before and during the disasters to save lives and property. The uncertainty and frequency of disasters make it hard for responders to validate that their response strategies will be effective. Lesson we don't learn. That I got it from the Journal of NPS. When the response is loose and life is lost, the resilience we are looking for seems to get lost. In essence, the dissertation will shed light on, is it ethical to be direct or indirect partner in disaster mitigation process, and yet let lives to be lost? Someone should be responsible for every unwarranted death, because even one life per se is very precious reward of life. The integrity, reliability, and validity of the research findings rely heavily on adherence to ethical principles. In the case that specific persons are identified in non-publicly accessible records, the researcher will consult with the AUSN Institution Review Board. To cut it short, the human rights of research participants must be protected. It is incumbent upon the qualitative researcher to provide a dynamic, informed consent when the study outcomes change. In the analysis of past records gathered during times of emergency in culture where informed consent was not practiced, there are interesting questions that will be faced in the analysis, the incident reports, and other notes that were made. The researcher will make sure to protect the privacy of victims of the disasters and participants and the confidentiality of the information they share to me. However, the question of the privacy of those whose actions have resulted in loss and damage to human life that may emerge from the analysis of the reports will be discussed case by case with hierarchy. Public accountability is an important principle of disaster management. So here, I'm also trying to include the lesson learned from Fukushima disaster, where, I came to know that 5 officials are criminally held responsible for not following the prescribed protocol. So that's why there was it was not, and people really could not decide whether in that 15-meter tall wave, if that was possible. But still, I also go by the view that if unwanted lives are lost, someone should be held responsible. So yeah, this is how I'm going to deal with this dissertation, and there will be chapter 3 results of the analysis of the Nepali cases, 4 results of the analysis of UN peacekeeping operation case, and there will be discussion, and at last I will conclude with some recommendation. Thank you.
Very much. Okay, open for questions. Carol?
First, thank you for a really brilliant and insightful discussion of the material. It's very informative, and it opens a window and a door to a world that most of us don't usually live in. And my thought goes to the Congo, which I think a lot of the other situations are very much related to. That the main ethical question, or the main ethical and bioethical issue, comes back to what you mentioned very briefly, which is the other participants in the Congo situation, who are benefiting by the problem and maintaining it. They need to add the medicine of their presence, so to speak, to keep stirring the problem. And I think from what I've seen in Nepal, also with the Maoist insurgency, with many things, the roots of many of the sufferings of these people are not because there's a need for these people to be suffering, but someone's profiting by the suffering of these people unnecessarily. And I think that it's a really, really key bioethical issue that everywhere in the world we need to address. So thank you very much for this insight.
Yeah, that's why I put that question. So where is the problem? Is it in our brain? Do we want to live a life where everyone should prosper, or it should be a zero-sum game? So what we want? That is the bioethical question that we would like to ponder. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your work.
Hi.
I would like to thank you also for presenting. My question comes from my background in California, where as a public health nurse, we use certain tools to teach communities. And I was wondering if you use any materials to teach the communities how to avoid and how to prepare for a disaster. For example, what we have in our work environment is a book that's called The California Planning Guide. In fact, I have one in the car that I'll give you. And we give it out to every patient we have because it tells you where resources are, and it tells you, one of my families has a kid who's on tube feedings, and they have 6 months worth of food for each family member in there, as well as a deep freezer with everything that's frozen. Of course, it won't stay frozen without electricity, but I'm not sure of what resources the people had to make plans, because as much as a government needs to make a master plan, I wonder what results or what possibilities the people had to fend for themselves. And I realize that their income and farming abilities or whatever the products are, may not be as sustainable as here where we go to the stores and buy things. But still there's a way to help them plan for disaster. And I was wondering if that was considered or was even available in in Nepal.
In Nepal, you mean?
Yes, sir.
Oh.
Because, for example, they do it in China with barefoot, they call them barefoot doctors. And they go out and teach about diseases and such. And so I'm wondering if community organizers could be assisted to set up a disaster planning training for villages.
Thank you for your question. You know, honestly speaking, 25 years ago, 20 years ago, there was nothing as such what you would think as a basic thing that should go out to people. But with the inclusion of internet in the society now, people are learning faster than they used to learn. And there are so many other, you know, like the federal government and local, state government and local governments are doing making an effort to do that. But since it also depends upon the education level of the population, how much they can take.
Absolutely.
Right? That one. And second thing is awareness. How much they think that thing is important to them. You know, so I think that has not been accepted by that society. But government is doing more. I mean, they're pretty much in a good shape so far as giving knowledge to these local communities concerned. They're okay, and there are there's a local government stores at the local level for emergency. Everything is there, but when it strikes, so it's like so bad. You know, getting them to other side is a big problem. So those are the things. And then what I'm saying is, you know, what I mean by awareness is we don't really think that it comes to us. Oh, is it? Just like last time when that first earthquake happened that jolted Los Angeles. Dolma and we were drinking coffee in Starbucks, and I told Dolma, "Hey, Dolma, there's earthquake." She was like, "Oh, really?" You know. Yeah, and then I think that it wouldn't affect me. And the person on the next chair said, "Oh yes, it's and then she got a little serious. So that happens, you know. So I mean, the moment I said,
it happens here.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah, but probably this he is or she is talking is not for me. That is how our brain works. I mean, you know. Did I answer your question?
I think so, because often when we walk in the house and I'm there to look at someone's leg, they go, "Well, why are you giving me this? Why is this your business?" And so, you know, yes, it's a beginning. And it's a wonderful beginning.
And then what happens is, even if you have an emergency, you want to have an emergency package at home, if you can't use for say 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, you don't want to replenish that one. It just stays there in the corner, you know, dust and whatever happens. And then that kind of recurring education is important. You know, it's not that you give one time or every year with the same level of importance. That's what I think.
Thank you.
Thank you. Edward?
I was just going to ask, when a disaster strikes and the plan is sort of thrown out the window and no one really is following the plan, would you say that's the fault of maybe leadership, or is it the fault of just sort of everyone altogether? And whose responsibility then is it to have the plan? Is it like the leaders or the military's responsibility to have a plan, or is it sort of everyone, every person altogether? The political.
I would say that it's the have not really. I'm not able to dig in so deep because I'm at the very outset of this dissertation. But what my gut feeling is telling me, by which I maybe a little get biased with my presentation, but what it tells my gut feeling tells me that it's the individual at fault and the people at the policy level that are at fault, not the responders. Because for responders, they have most of the time the resources and manpower is in place, so they go there and then strike there. I mean, just go right there. But what happens is, like, if I am told that I need to have emergency kit, why don't I keep it? That's so simple, right? At least that gives me 1 or 2 days to breathe, right? We lack right there as an individual, and at the policy level, there are hidden and obvious agendas where government policy makers should have to choose what you want. You want to put money there, or you want to save life there. So it's straight in between there. So, government is at the government policy level. They exactly know, but they don't tell you. They kind of tell you that, okay, even if we lose, let's say, 200 lives, maybe we can have another way of doing things, or I can score some political points. That always happens. Yeah. Just like saying, okay, killing someone is okay, but if I get $10 million, do I go for it or against it?
Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, yeah, thank you very much, Peru. It's very
You're welcome.
interesting. We wish you good luck.
Thank you.